Great. Hi, I'm Grace. I just graduated from the Joint Bachelor's Master's program at the University of Washington. And the work I'm going to be presenting today is the result of collaboration with Miranda and Yoshi at the University of Washington and Elissa at Georgetown. A quick content warning before we begin. Today's talk discusses the use of AI in image-based sexual abuse, so feel free to step out at any time and do whatever's best for you. Now, I want you to imagine that a friend uses AI to create a video of you doing a funny dance and sends it to a group chat with you and your friends in it. You don't have to answer out loud, but think to yourself, do you find this acceptable? Now, imagine that instead of sending it to a group chat, your friend posts it online. How do you feel about it now? What if, instead of a friend, a stranger created this video? And lastly, how do your feelings change if the video instead depicted a sexual act? We noticed how strong and contrasting our reactions were to different real-world use cases like these, and we're interested in better understanding what about a situation shapes people's attitudes towards synthetic media, as well as what about a person shapes their attitudes. These questions are motivated by a concerning increase in the use of AI to generate non-consensual intimate imagery, or AIG and CII. We use this term following terminology in the image-based sexual abuse space. With this in mind, we ask more formally, how do attitudes toward non-consensual synthetic imagery differ depending on if the media depicts a sexual act, the additional context of who is creating the media, and for what purpose, a person's attitude towards sexual consent and non-synthetic sexual content, and given the broader context of image-based sexual abuse as a highly gendered phenomenon, a person's gender. To study these questions, we conducted a survey of 315 people in the US through Prolific in December 2023. Our survey included vignettes, which were short hypothetical stories involving the non-consensual generation of media depicting the respondent, in which we varied the creator of the media, the action depicted, and the creator's intent. We then measured how acceptable the participants found the creation of the media, the sharing of it publicly and privately, the resharing by someone other than the creator, and the seeking out of the media by someone searching for it online. After presenting each participant with 3 random vignettes, they completed 2 subscales from the Sexual Consent Scale Revised, which is a validated means of gauging attitudes toward sexual consent. They then answered questions about how acceptable they found the creation and sharing of non-synthetic intimate imagery. For example, nude media created and shared in the context of an intimate relationship. We also collected demographic information, including gender. Given the sensitive nature of our topic, we took several steps to ensure a safe and informed experience for participants. Firstly, we did not expose participants to any actual synthetic media, only hypothetical stories about such content. Furthermore, our IRB deemed our survey exempt. Given that some vignettes involved placing participants in hypothetical victimization scenarios, we wanted to take steps beyond IRB approval to mitigate potential harms. This included consulting subject area experts with training in clinical psychology and sexual trauma, providing a thorough description of what the survey involved, including that some scenarios may involve the use of generative AI to create non-consensual intimate imagery, and allowing participants to opt out of questions they were not comfortable with. After collecting responses, we conducted both quantitative and qualitative analysis. To analyze acceptability ratings, we built cumulative linked mixed models. In addition to acceptability ratings, we asked respondents to provide a justification for why they found the creation of media in each vignette either acceptable or unacceptable. To analyze these, we examined and coded the responses. Now I'm going to present some of our key findings, which are all explored more deeply in the paper, in addition to other findings. On the left of this graph, we have the vignettes which involved the action of performing a sexual act. For example, V3 at the bottom is the vignette where an intimate partner uses AI to generate a video of the respondent performing a sexual act for the purpose of sexual pleasure. The red colors will represent unacceptable ratings, and the green ones will represent acceptable ones. When it comes to the creation of AIG and CAI, we see people find it largely unacceptable. The same is true even more so for all three types of sharing. However, there is much less consensus around the seeking out of this media, as we can see by the increased amount of neutral and acceptable ratings in the last column. Additionally, we observed that the contextual factors of action and intent played a strong role in people's attitudes. The actions of playing a sport or saying something were deemed more acceptable across the creation, all forms of sharing, and seeking out of synthetic media, as opposed to the action of performing a sexual act. The intent to entertain increased acceptability across all of these categories as well. We also saw that men found the creation and sharing of synthetic media depicting them more acceptable than those of other genders. Furthermore, some open text justifications appeared differently for men. For example, acceptability as a result of flattery was more common amongst men. For example, P65 states, "The content she generated sounds cool and indicates she's attracted to me." Open text responses also revealed two common but different perspectives on AIG and CAI. One focusing on the potential harms of creating and sharing such content, as demonstrated by P163, who stated, "It's not harming me or blackmailing me or anything. As long as it doesn't get shared, I think it's okay." Another perspective focused instead on how the non-consensual creation of the content violates people's rights, as demonstrated by P195, who stated, "I feel it's unacceptable to manipulate my image in such a way. My body and how it looks belongs to me." Now we'll examine some implications of these findings. In other contexts, media scholars have described the phenomenon of distributed responsibility, where people feel less accountable and more anonymous in online settings. Given that people found the seeking out of AIG and CAI more acceptable than the creation and sharing of it, we believe distributed responsibility is demonstrated here in the context of AIG and CAI. Consequently, our findings suggest that interventions should focus on breaking the sense of distributed responsibility and deterring individuals from seeking out and consuming this content. For example, technical interventions could include deterrence messaging on certain searches, and social ones could focus on changing norms around viewing harmful content like this. In the rights-based justifications for unacceptability, participants highlighted our right to consent. The most common explanation for finding synthetic media unacceptable was a lack of consent, such as P19, who stated, "No content should be made in someone else's likeness without their consent." Furthermore, those who scored higher on the second subscale of the sexual consent scale revised, indicating more positive attitudes toward establishing sexual consent, were less likely to rate the non-consensual creation or sharing of synthetic content as acceptable. These findings suggest connections between understanding and norms around consent in different contexts. Grounded in this, we speculate that strengthening consent norms in both online and offline contexts through techniques like consent education will help mitigate AIG and CAI. Like consent, privacy is a fundamental right. P10 was one participant to describe how AIG and CAI felt like a violation of privacy. Many frameworks and technological conceptions of privacy often focus on data privacy, but these insights highlight the need to be informed by contextual norms and integrity, as the media we're examining doesn't involve authentic data about or from a person, only their representation. From legal to technical perspectives, we need to grapple with these emerging questions around consent and privacy with regards to AI as we try to protect people's rights online. Our work is part of a nascent but growing body focusing on AIG and CAI. We believe future directions include better understanding perpetration and victimization through continued measurement of prevalence, examining the evolving landscape of technology used to create and share this content, and continuing to monitor attitudes and acceptance of AIG and CAI over time and across different countries. Overall, as AI becomes more advanced, accessible, and ubiquitous, there are many emerging harms, including AIG and CII. Through continued research, we must inform the technical, social, and legal interventions trying to measure and mitigate these harms. Thanks so much. I'm happy to answer any questions.